Good morning, I'm Jamshed Beg, known as JB the Adventurer, a solo traveler and a travel blogger from Manchester, England with over 30 years of travel experience. In today's adventure, we're going to visit the Royal Castle of Stirling, and I'm going to tell you some really interesting facts about this incredibly beautiful and historic place. Stirling Castle, located in the city of Stirling in central Scotland, is one of the largest and most important castles in Scotland, both historically and architecturally. It is surrounded on three sides by steep cliffs, giving it a strong defensive position. Its strategic location, guarding what was until the 1890s the farthest downstream crossing of the River Forth, has made it an important fortification in the region from the earliest times. Castle Hill, on which Stirling Castle is built, forms part of Stirling Sill, a formation of quartz dolerite around 350 million years old. It's likely that this natural feature was occupied at an early date, as a hill fort is located on Govan Hill immediately to the east. The Romans bypassed Stirling, building a fort at Down instead, but the rock may have been occupied by the Métis at this time. It may later have been a stronghold of a Manav Godin and has also been identified with the settlement recorded in the 7th and 8th century Al-Ladiu, where King Penda of Mercia besieged King Oswo of Bernicia in 655. The area came under Pictish control after the defeat of the Northumbrians at the Battle of Dun Nechtaean 30 years later. However, there is no archaeological evidence of occupation of Castle Hill before the late medieval period. Other legends have been associated with Stirling, or Snowdon as it was more poetically known. The 16th century historian Hector Boyce claims in his Historia Gentis Scotorum that the Romans under Agricola fortified Stirling, and that Kenneth MacAlpin, traditionally the first king of Scotland, besieged a castle at Stirling during his takeover of the Pictish kingdom in the 9th century. The first record of Stirling Castle dates from around 1110, when King Alexander I dedicated a chapel there. It appears to have been an established royal centre by this time, as Alexander died here in 1124. During the reign of his successor David I, Stirling became a royal borough and the castle an important administration centre. King William I formed a deer park to the southwest of the castle, but after his capture by the English in 1174, he was forced to surrender several castles, including Stirling and Edinburgh Castle, under the Treaty of Falaise. There is no evidence that the English actually occupied the castle, and it was formally handed back by Richard I of England in 1189. Stirling continued to be a favoured royal residence, with William himself dying there in 1214 and Alexander III laying out a new park for deer hunting in the 1260s. Stirling remained a centre of royal administration until the death of Alexander III in 1286. In 1296, Edward invaded Scotland, beginning the Wars of Scottish Independence, which would last for the next 60 years. The English found Stirling Castle abandoned and empty and set about occupying this key site. They were dislodged the following year after the victory of Andrew Moray and William Wallace at the Battle of Stirling Bridge. Many of the garrisons were killed during the battle, after which the English commander William Fitzwarren and Marmaduke Theobald retreated to the castle. However, they were quickly starved into surrender by the Scots. Next summer, the castle changed hands again, being abandoned by Scots after the English victory at Falkirk. Edward strengthened the castle, but it was besieged in 1299 by forces including Robert the Bruce. King Edward failed to relieve the garrison, who were forced to surrender. By 1303, the English again held the upper hand, and Stirling was the last remaining castle in Scottish hands. Although Edward's victory seemed complete, he was dead by 1307 and Robert Bruce was now King of Scots. By 1330, only Stirling, Roxburgh, Edinburgh, and Berwick castles were held by the English. Edward Bruce, the king's brother, laid siege to Stirling, which was held by Sir Philip Mowbray. Mowbray proposed a bargain that he would surrender the castle if it were not relieved by 24th June 1314. Bruce agreed and withdrew. The following summer, the English duly headed north, led by Edward II, to save the castle. On 23rd-24th June, King Robert's forces met the English at the Battle of Bannockburn within sight of the castle walls. The resulting English defeat was decisive. King Edward attempted to take refuge in the castle, but Mowbray was determined to keep to his word, and the English were forced to flee. Mowbray handed over the castle, changing sides himself in the process. King Robert ordered the castle to be slighted, its defences destroyed to prevent occupation by English. The war was not over. However, the Second War of Scottish Independence saw the English in control of Stirling Castle by 1336, when Thomas Rockby was the commander, and extensive works were carried out, still largely in timber rather than stone. Andrew Moray attempted a siege in 1337, when guns may have been used for the very first time in Scotland. Robert Stewart, the future King Robert II, retook Stirling in a siege during 1341-1342. King Edward's army arrived in April 1304 with at least 17 siege engines. The Scots under William Oliphant surrendered on 20th July. Maurice Murray was appointed as its keeper. In 1360, Robert IV was appointed governor of Stirling Castle, an office he passed on to his son John and grandson William, who was governor in 1399. 15 years later, in 1452, it was at Stirling Castle that James stabbed and killed William VIII, Earl of Douglas. Almost all the present buildings in the castle were constructed between 1490 and 1600, when Stirling was developed as a principal royal centre by the Stuart kings James V, the VI, and the VII. King James also renovated the Chapel Royal, one of two churches within the castle at this time, and in 1501 received approval from Pope Alexander VI for the establishment of a college of priests. The architecture of these new buildings shows an eclectic mix of English, French, and German influences, reflecting the international ambitions of the Stuart dynasty. Most of the principal buildings of the castle date from the 15th and 16th century. A few structures remain from the 14th century, while the outer defences fronting the town date from the early 18th century. Before the union with England, Stirling Castle was also one of the most used of the many Scottish royal residences, very much a palace as well as a fortress. Several Scottish kings and queens have been crowned at Stirling, including Mary Queen of Scots in 1542, and others were born or died there. There have been at least 8 sieges of Stirling Castle, including several during the Wars of Scottish Independence, when the last being in 1746, when Prince Charlie unsuccessfully tried to take the castle. Stirling Castle is a scheduled ancient monument and is now a tourist attraction managed by Historic Environment Scotland. Exploring the world and sharing these exciting adventures with you is a passion of mine. Be a part of my passion by hitting the like button and share this video as much as possible. Hit the subscribe button so you don't miss any future adventures. Take only memories, leave only footprints. See you next week with a new adventure. Ciao.